Okay, let's begin. So thank you everyone for coming. We are here this evening with Cesar Zuñiga, who is running for city council. Did I pronounce your name right, Cesar?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Just want to double check. Who's running for city council in District 38, which encompasses Sunset Park, Red Hook, and bits of the surrounding neighborhoods. And Cesar, we're going to give you 5 minutes to talk about yourself and why you're running, and then allow 10 minutes for questions. So go right ahead.
Great. So first of all, thank you all. Let me start by saying that obviously these are not normal times, and I couldn't wish for anything more than just to be in a space with in a actual space with you guys, being in person. But here we are, and I really appreciate what you're doing, particularly at a time when there's over how many, like 300 council races in the city. So you guys are really doing some amazing work, and I appreciate you folks a lot, because this is a really big part of the democratic process, is really vetting candidates. So thank you. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I typically like to sort of tell you a little story about who I am and basically how I got here. I am the proud son of immigrant parents who came from Mexico in the mid 60s. And like many of the immigrants who continue to come today, my parents came to provide us with a better opportunity in life. They also bought into the social contract of this country, right? Work hard and pay your taxes and reap some benefits along the way. And I think, watching my parents work and watching them get up every single morning and go to work in their sort of low paying factory jobs really instilled a sense of a work ethic that I continue to have, which is to be the best that you can at your work, to do it without complaining, to do it with dignity and humility, and that's something that I bring to the table as a leader, and I certainly will bring that as an aspiring legislator. I also grew up watching my dad organizing the Mexican community, the burgeoning Mexican community in the 80s. The community was growing rapidly. There were a lot of push factors that brought a lot of people to this part of the country, especially. And, my dad really dived in there and organized the community. And I tell folks that I would not be here doing community work had it not been for what I witnessed my dad doing, and instilling in me that part of our responsibility is to give back, is to take care of one another in any way that you can, particularly when you have just a little privilege and opportunity that you give back, and that you really support others who are sort of coming behind you. So that's been a big influence in my life. I'm also a dad. I have two beautiful boys that have changed my life and my world dramatically and completely. They keep me grounded. They keep it real for me, and so I'm a better human being because of those two boys and their mom. I'm also a community leader. I've been involved in my community for ever since I can remember, even back when I was helping my dad do some of his work. And for the last 10 years, I've been on Community Board 7, that mainly represents Sunset Park and the South Slope. I've also been the chair of Community Board 7 for the last 3.5 years. And it's really been that sort of position has really helped me understand and really informs why I'm running for city council. I mean, I think that's been a vantage point for me to really understand the issues, the pressing issues of the district, and some of the solutions that I think we need to be putting on the table to talk about, and to really, I think, addressing some of the pressing needs. So, for example, I think, as an aspiring council member, I will be fighting and advocating for affordable housing, which I believe is the #1 issue in our district. It certainly is an issue not just in our district, but in the city and across the country. So affordable housing is as a forefront of my agenda, as well as economic development. I believe that the waterfront in our community is is probably the most important asset that we have as a community. And I feel like we need strong, progressive, bold, tested leadership to make sure that we're doing some comprehensive planning along that waterfront, planning that's going to result in economic development and job creation, that's going to prioritize and center our community. But really, when you think about it, it can be a boon for the entire region if we do it well. So that's another one. And then finally, education. Education is something that is my passion. In addition to sort of championing education, that's what I do for a living. For my professional work, I'm the research director of an early childhood intervention. And I expect to bring my voice and my experience and my toolbox basically around the education space to the council. I think there's so much more we can be doing, particularly in the early childhood space. That's what I've done for over 2 decades. I've dedicated my life to it. I have a lot to say about it, and I have a lot of ideas. And you know, I truly believe that education and healthcare are human rights. And I think the council will be that much richer with someone with my background and the set of tools and perspectives that I bring. So that's a little bit of who I am and what I want to accomplish in the city council. And now I'm happy to take questions from you all.
Helps to unmute myself. Thank you very much, Cesar. Yeah, we'll now take questions from other people. If you have a question, please either use the Zoom raise your hand feature or just put in the chat that you have a question. I mean, there are few enough people that could probably literally wave your hand and I would see you. So yeah, we'll start with, does anyone have a question right now for Cesar? I'll start us off while people are thinking. So among one of the many things that the COVID-19 pandemic has laid bare is just how thin the margins that many of our local businesses are operating under, especially restaurants, bars, you know, things of that sort that have been hit very hard by it. What do you feel can be done for them to ensure their survival?
Sure. I mean, thank you for that question. I think that's a really important question, particularly in a district like ours, where the small business community really is the engine of the local economy, right? And I think for starters, we can hopefully have a government, the local government, and a council that's actually going to center the needs of small businesses. And what do I mean by that? I mean, in addition to the red tape that we need to cut out as much red tape as possible to allow small businesses to thrive, I think we really need to do some structural changes around how we support and the type of technical assistance we give to small businesses, particularly small businesses like in our district that are mostly owned by immigrants who have this amazing entrepreneurial spirit, but maybe don't know exactly how to sort of navigate the bureaucracy that is the city to make their businesses thrive. So I really want to make sure that we have resources allocated for technical assistance. Again, making sure that we're looking at practices across agencies around what is unnecessary red tape. And one of the things that I'm really proud of in the campaign is that we have gotten a lot of support from our small businesses. I think they see our campaign as one that really aligns with their values and what they're trying to accomplish. And in talking to the small business community, one of the practices that I hear over and over again is that how certain city agencies have a direct benefit directly from enforcement actions that then the revenues that are raised through some of these enforcement actions directly benefit their agency budgets. That's got to stop, because what that creates is an opportunity for an agency to really go out and target specific businesses, because they know that whatever revenue they raise through enforcement is going to go directly into our budget. So it's these kinds of things that we have to examine with a microscope and really figure out how to decentivize some of these agencies from targeting some of these small businesses and basically padding their budgets through some of these enforcement actions. So I'm really invested in making sure that our small businesses are protected and that are given the opportunity to really thrive in this economy.
Okay, thank you. Ellen, I think you have a question now.
Hi, Cesar. Thank you for speaking with us today. I put my question in the chat. You mentioned in your questionnaire that you're a supporter of the New York Health Act, and there is a candidate's pledge for anybody who's running for office this year. So we're hoping that you be willing to sign that.
No doubt. I mean, I'm all in. I think, again, I want to reiterate my belief and my value that healthcare and access to high quality healthcare should be a human right. People should not have to go broke to get healthcare. People should not have to prioritize one thing over the other to get healthcare. And so absolutely 100%. And, you know, I think, you know, this healthcare for me and education really kind of raise for me, and I think it should raise for everybody, having some serious conversations about ways for finding ways to make this work, right? I think the biggest argument we get around like more resources for education or healthcare is how are we going to pay for it? And to me, the answer is very simple. We have to start thinking seriously about creating additional revenue stream, whether it's taxing the wealthiest New Yorkers, whether it's, you know, deriving revenue from cannabis taxation or other types of taxation. I think that's really something that we have to put on the table. And this is how we're going to make these important programs work for everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else have a question?
I would just say that I would have asked you about housing, but I can see from your questionnaire that you've given a very thoughtful and nuanced answer to, you know, the larger problem and specific issues in the district. So I just thank you for that.
You bet. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, I will actually ask, I had a housing question that I will follow on to that, which is that, right, your answer was really good and very detailed in terms of sort of what sorts of other programs and other ways that we can think about how to make housing more accessible and more affordable. I'm wondering from the other end, certainly as a community board chair, you know, you've seen the ULURP process up close and personal, and sort of, you know, seen, you know, how the city handles someone saying, hey, I want to build something big here. I wonder if you go into more detail, well, what are your thoughts on that process and how you might think it could be improved?
Man, I'm so grateful to be asked that question because frankly, I feel super proud of what we did on Community Board 7, along with our colleague Julio, who's the first vice chair on the community board. You know, I think for me, that's frankly like a model for us to like really consider. You know, if you agree that the ULURP process is broken and that we need some substantial structural reform around that process, then take a look at what we did in Sunset Park in Community Board 7, right? And, you know, look, the ULURP process ironically came about because, you know, we had Robert and Moses building these mega projects and we needed to get more community input. But that the spirit of that process hasn't lived up to that aspiration of getting more community input. So for me, I think, you know, when you think about what community input means, like when you really dig down and like understand it at the level that I think we understood it is, yeah, it's messy, it's time consuming, but it's absolutely essential to making sure that you're opening up spaces. And for us, you know, one of the things that we did in our community is we thought very, very seriously about who is our community, who are the folks in our community. It's immigrants who have a whole bunch of like other priorities. And so if we really wanted them to be part of this conversation, particularly with something so consequential as Industry City, we really needed to create the conditions and build the capacity for them to participate. So for me, a structural reform around ULURP is really making sure that we do those things. So what does that mean? It means creating opportunities for communities to participate because you now facilitate language access, right? So we translated and we had simultaneous translation in Chinese and Spanish at every one of these big public gatherings that we did. Because again, we didn't think it made sense to say, okay, yeah, everyone should come in and weigh in. But if we weren't going to address the language barriers, then it's just usual lip service, right? So we did that. We also thought about, you know, what are some of the priorities that some of these working families have in when they sort of weigh, do I go to a community board meeting or do I go home and take care of my family? Typically, going home to take care of the family is going to beat out any meeting that you put in front of these folks. So, you know, we did things like childcare, we fed folks, we really created an atmosphere where we meant that we wanted more community engagement. And so for me, that's the kind of upfront work that I think we need to be doing with the ULURP process. And beyond that is really building the capacity of a community to go up against these big developers, right? We were up against, it's the classic David and Goliath story, right? We were up against Industry City, who had, you know, a whole squadron of lawyers and lobbyists and technical folks who understood it. And we had to use our own resources to build that kind of capacity on our side so that we could counter the proposal. City government needs to double down on building and bringing the tools for community to really take on these big developers, and so that there's a chance for an actual meaningful back and forth conversation. So that's some of the stuff that I'm really looking forward to advocating for as a city council member is building the tools in community to have meaningful and fruitful participation.
Great, thank you so much. All right, we have time for one more question. Does anyone else have one other question for Cesar? Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Zuñiga, for coming and doing this. We are, again, I apologize, I did not have your questionnaire up yesterday, as I should have, or even this morning. But your questionnaire is currently up on our website. This interview has been recorded. It will go up on our website, on our social media. And in our February 21st meeting, there's nothing you need to do. You know, we will have 15, 20-minute discussions on each race we're considering and that we've interviewed candidates with, and we'll decide whether and if so and whom we might want to endorse in that race. But again, we really appreciate you coming and doing this and, you know, providing this great service that to help us and help the community understand you and your platform.
Well, again, thank you folks, because again, you folks are really doing some amazing work, and the fact that you want to take this on it speaks volumes to your dedication to you know, democracy. So thank you so much for having us and for doing everything that you do.
Have a good night.
You too.